The lights in the cargo bay of Hemlock Point Station flickered with a sickly amber glow, casting long shadows across faces that Marcus Webb wished he didn't have to see. The air smelled of industrial cleaner failing to mask something organic and wrong. He kept his hands in the pockets of his leather jacket, feeling the cold metal of his credit chip between his fingers, wondering for the 100th time why he'd come here. The freight hauler business wasn't what it used to be. Corporate shipping lines had squeezed independents, like him, to the margins of known space, forcing him to take jobs in places where the Galactic Council's laws were suggestions at best. But this was different. This was a line he'd never thought he'd even approach, let alone cross. Lot 17, the auctioneer called out, his voice distorted through a vocal modulator that stripped away any identifying characteristics. Delphian male, age equivalent to 23 standard years. Mining experience. No family bonds. Starting bid at 4,000 credits. Marcus felt his stomach turn as a humanoid with iridescent blue skin was led onto the platform, chains glowing with neural dampeners around his wrists and ankles. The Delphian's eyes were glazed, whether from drugs or despair, Marcus couldn't tell. Maybe both. The creature didn't resist as hands grabbed at him. Prospective buyers checking teeth and muscle tone like he was livestock. He shouldn't be here. Marcus had told himself he was just gathering information, seeing if the rumors about Hemlock Point's black market were true. He'd report it to someone, somewhere. But who? And would they even care about what happened this far out in the fringe? The bidding ended at 7,200. The Delphian was led away, stumbling slightly, and Marcus felt his hands clench into fists. Lot 18, the auctioneer's tone shifted, taking on a note of something that might have been excitement. Now this is special, folks. Zalith female. You don't see many of these anymore. They usually kill themselves before capture. Marcus's attention snapped to the platform. The being they brought out was humanoid, but unmistakably alien. Her skin held an opalescent quality, shifting between pale silver and soft lavender under the harsh lights. Her hair was long and white, almost luminescent, falling around a face that was delicate and angular at once. She wore only a thin gray shift that did nothing to hide how thin she'd become. But it was her eyes that stopped Marcus cold. Where the others had been empty or defeated, hers burned. Even drugged, even chained, there was a fierce intelligence there, a defiance that hadn't been broken. She looked directly into the crowd, scanning faces, and when her gaze passed over Marcus, he felt something he couldn't name. Zalith are rare, the auctioneer continued. Empathic species, adaptable, highly intelligent. This one was processed at the Kepler facility 3 weeks ago. Full conditioning package. Starting bid at 15,000 credits. The crowd murmured with interest. Marcus saw several hands go up immediately. Next to him, a Horthian merchant with cybernetic enhancements leaned forward, mandibles clicking with anticipation. 15,000, someone called out. 18,000. 20-to double quotes. Marcus watched the Zalith woman's face. For just a moment, something flickered in her expression, not fear, but calculation. She was analyzing the crowd, even now. Even drugged and chained and being sold like cargo, she was thinking. The bidding climbed rapidly. 30,000. 35. Marcus's entire savings was 42,000 credits. Everything he'd scraped together from 2 years of grinding freight runs. He'd been planning to use it to finally upgrade the Wandering Star's failing jump drive. 40,000 credits. The voice came from the back, a tall figure in an environmental suit. Species unknown. Final offer. The auctioneer paused, looking around the room. 40,000 going once. Marcus didn't plan it. He didn't think it through. He just opened his mouth and heard himself say, 42,000. The room went quiet. Heads turned. The auctioneer's modulated voice held a note of surprise. 42,000 from the gentleman in the leather jacket. Any advance on 42? The environmental suit figure tilted their head, considering, then shook it once and turned away. 42,000 going once, twice. Sold to bidder 379. Marcus felt his heart hammering in his chest. What had he just done? He'd blown every credit he had, bought a living being, crossed a line he could never uncross. The rational part of his brain was screaming at him. But when they brought her down from the platform, when they transferred the neural dampener controls to his data pad, And when those burning eyes met his again, closer this time, he saw something there that made him certain he'd had no choice at all. "Congratulations on your purchase," a processing clerk said, bored voice not matching his words. "Transponder code will be registered to your ship ID. Standard merchandise guarantee applies. 14-day return window for defects. Keep the dampeners active for the first 72 hours minimum. They can be unpredictable during adjustment. Merchandise." The word made Marcus want to hit something. "Come on," he said quietly to the Zalith woman, trying to make his voice gentle. She flinched anyway, but followed as he led her toward the docking arm where the Wandering Star waited. His ship wasn't much a Cascade-class hauler that had seen better decades, with living quarters barely large enough for one person, let alone two. But it was home, and it was freedom, and right now it was the closest thing to safety he could offer. She walked stiffly beside him, the neural dampeners making her movements jerky. Marcus kept his distance, hyper-aware that she had every reason to fear him. He was, after all, the man who'd just bought her. When they reached the ship, he opened the cargo bay rather than the main hatch. "I'm going to take those chains off," he said, speaking slowly. "I'm not going to hurt you. Do you understand?" She stared at him, unblinking. Up close, he could see the subtle patterns in her skin, like oil on water, shifting with each breath. "Do you understand, Standard?" He tried again. "Yes." Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper, but clear. "I understand." "Good. Okay." Marcus pulled out his data pad, accessing the dampener controls. His fingers hovered over the release command. "What's your name?" She was quiet for so long he thought she might not answer. "Then they called me Asara. They called you? What do you call yourself?" Another long pause. Her eyes flickered with something confusion, maybe, or pain. "I don't remember." Marcus's chest tightened. What had they done to her? He pressed the release command, and the dampeners fell away with a soft chime. She swayed, nearly fell, and he reached out instinctively to steady her. She jerked back from his touch like it burned. "Sorry," he said quickly, raising his hands. "Sorry, you're safe now. Or as safe as I can make you. I'm going to figure out how to get you home, wherever that is. But first, let's get you somewhere you can rest." She looked at him with those intense eyes, and Marcus had the unsettling feeling that she could see straight through him, could read every thought and intention. "Why?" she asked. "Why what? Why did you buy me? What do you want?" It was the question he'd been asking himself. Marcus ran a hand through his dark hair, suddenly exhausted. "Honestly, I have no idea. I just couldn't watch you be sold to someone else. Couldn't walk away." "That's not an answer, I know." He met her gaze. "But it's the truth. Come on, Asara, or whatever your real name is. Let's get off this station before I do something else I haven't thought through." She studied him for a moment longer, then nodded once, following him deeper into the ship. Marcus sealed the hatch behind them and set course for open space, his hands shaking slightly on the controls. He'd just spent his last credit on a woman whose real name he didn't know. With no plan and no idea what came next, the Wandering Star's engines hummed to life, pulling them away from Hemlock Point and into the dark between stars. Behind him, Asara stood in the doorway of the cockpit, watching him with those burning eyes, and Marcus wondered if he'd just saved her or simply bought himself a different kind of trouble. The answer, he suspected, was both. The first 3 days were hell. Marcus had given Asara the only private quarters on the Wandering Star, a closet-sized cabin that had served as his bedroom. He'd moved his own stuff to the cargo bay, stringing up a hammock between support struts like he used to do during his early hauling days. It wasn't comfortable, but comfort felt obscene when the woman down the corridor was going through withdrawal. Because that's what it was. The conditioning package the auctioneer had bragged about wasn't just psychological torture. It was chemical slavery, neural suppressants, emotion dampeners, compliance drugs, all layered into a cocktail designed to strip away free will. And now that Asara wasn't being dosed, her body was fighting back violently. He heard her through the thin walls, crying, sometimes. Other times, sounds of pain that made him want to break something. He'd tried to help at first, but she'd screamed at him to stay away, her voice raw with terror and fury. So he waited outside the door with water, nutrient packs, and medical supplies, leaving them where she could reach without having to see him. On the third night, the sound stopped. Marcus sat up in his hammock listening. The ship's engines provided their usual background hum, but the cabin was silent, too silent. He dropped to the deck and moved quietly to her door, pressing his ear against the metal. Nothing. "Isara," he called softly. No response. "I'm coming in, just to check on you." He keyed the door open. The cabin was dark except for the running lights, casting everything in shades of blue. She was curled on the bunk, her luminescent hair spread across the pillow like spilled moonlight. For a terrible moment, he thought she was dead. Then her eyes opened, fixing on him with that intense gaze. The wildness had faded, replaced by exhaustion and something clearer, more present. "You're still here," she said. "Where else would I be? It's my ship." "No. I mean," she pushed herself up slowly, moving like every muscle ached. "You haven't tried anything. Haven't demanded anything. I thought once the drugs wore off, once I was vulnerable." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "I'm not a slaver. I don't care what that transaction looked like. You're not my property." "Then what am I?" It was a question he'd been wrestling with himself. "A passenger, I guess. Someone who needs help." Isara laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "You spent 42,000 credits on a passenger? Bad financial planning. I'm known for it." He stayed in the doorway, giving her space. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've been torn apart and badly reassembled." She ran her hands through her hair, and Marcus noticed the patterns in her skin were more visible now, swirling with faint colors, but clearer. "The fog is lifting." "Good, that's good." He hesitated. "Are you hungry?" "I mean, really hungry, not that recycled nutrient paste." "I could cook something." She looked at him strangely. "You cook? When I have ingredients?" "Yeah. There's a supply depot 2 days from here. I was planning to stock up anyway." "You're taking me to a populated station?" Her voice sharpened with alarm. "They'll scan the ship. They'll see the slave transponder registration. Already scrubbed it." Marcus interrupted. "First thing I did after we jumped. Completely illegal, of course, but that ship sailed when I bought a person at an auction. We're both criminals now." Isara stared at him, and for the first time, he saw something other than fear or defiance in her expression. It might have been the beginning of trust, or maybe just confusion at meeting someone who didn't fit her expectations. "Why?" she asked again, echoing her question from 3 days ago. This time, Marcus had a better answer. "Because someone should. Because I could. Because..." He stopped, searching for words. "When I was a kid, my mom used to say that indifference is worse than cruelty. Cruelty at least acknowledges that others exist. Indifference just erases them. I couldn't be indifferent to you." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "My name isn't Isara," I figured. "What is it?" "I'm not sure." She touched her temple, wincing. "The drugs, they did something to my memory. But I keep seeing flashes. A different name. A different purpose." Her eyes met his. "I think I was looking for something. Or someone." Marcus's instincts prickled. "Looking for what?" "The trafficking ring. Hemlock Point." She spoke slowly, like she was pulling the words from deep water. "I was undercover. I'm an infiltrator. Or I was. I was supposed to document the operation, trace it back to the source. But something went wrong. You were captured. More than that. They knew what I was. Someone betrayed me." Her hands clenched into fists. "They used the conditioning drugs to break my cover, to make me forget. If they'd sold me to the right buyer, I would have compromised my entire organization." Marcus felt cold. "What organization?" She looked at him, and he saw her warring with herself, how much to trust, how much to reveal. Finally, she said, "We don't have a name that translates well. In Standard, you might call us the Threadkeepers. We investigate crimes that cross species boundaries, slavery, trafficking, things that fall between the cracks of galactic law. You're a spy. I'm an infiltrator." She corrected. "There's a difference. Spies gather intelligence. We become someone else entirely." She touched her skin, where the patterns shifted from silver to a deep violet. "My species, the Zalith, we're empathic. We can sense emotions, intentions. It makes us very good at reading people, at becoming whatever we need to be." "And what do you need to be now?" Isara, or whoever she really was, looked down at her hands. "I don't know." The person I was before the conditioning, she's fragmented. The identity they forced on me, Isara the slave, she's falling apart too. I'm caught between versions of myself. Marcus moved into the room slowly, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, keeping distance between them. So pick a new version. Maybe neither of those people is who you wanted to be. It's not that simple. Why not? You said it yourself, you become whoever you need to be. So become someone new. He gestured around the cramped cabin. Look, I don't know anything about your Threadkeeper organization or whatever mission you were on, but I know you're free now. Actually free, not just uncaged. That has to mean something. She studied him with those luminous eyes. You're an idealist. I'm a freight hauler who just torpedoed his own business to buy a person at auction. I'm clearly an idiot, not an idealist. That almost got a smile from her. Almost. What do I call you? I've been thinking of you as the human in my head. Marcus. Marcus Webb. Marcus, she repeated, testing the name. And you can call me Venya. It's not my real name, but it's the closest I can remember. It means truth seeker in Old Zalith. Venya, he said. That's better than Isara. Isara means silence, she said quietly. They chose it deliberately. To remind me I had no voice. Marcus felt anger flare in his chest. Well, you have a voice now. And when you're ready, maybe you can tell me about these traffickers. Because if they're still operating, if they're still taking people, you wanted to stop them. It wasn't a question, don't you? Venya's expression hardened, and Marcus saw the operative underneath the trauma. Yes, but it's dangerous. You have no idea what you'd be walking into. Then explain it to me. She looked at him for a long moment, and Marcus felt that strange sensation again, like she was reading something beneath his skin, seeing into parts of himself he kept hidden. It should have felt invasive, but instead, it felt like being understood. All right, Venya said finally. But first, you should know what I am, what my kind can do. She held out her hand, palm up. Give me your hand. Marcus hesitated, then reached out, placing his hand in hers. Her skin was cool and surprisingly soft. The moment they touched, he felt it, a rush of emotion that wasn't his own. Her fear, her pain, but also her determination. And underneath it all, something unexpected, gratitude. Wonder, the fragile beginning of hope. You feel that? She asked softly. Yeah, he breathed. Is it always like this? Only when we choose to share. Usually, I just sense surface emotions. But with physical contact, with intention, she closed her eyes, and the sensation deepened. He felt her exhaustion, the way every muscle in her body ached. But he also felt her becoming more solid, more real, like a signal tuning into frequency. And then he felt something else. His own emotions reflected back at him, seen through her perception. His loneliness, carried through years of solo flights. His need to matter, to make a difference in a universe that often felt too vast and uncaring. His attraction to her, which he'd been trying to ignore, suddenly obvious and exposed. He pulled his hand back, face flushing. Sorry, don't apologize. Venya's expression had softened. It's honest. I've been surrounded by lies for so long. Honest feeling is. She searched for words. It's clean, pure. They sat in silence for a moment, the ship humming around them, the traffickers. Venya said eventually, they're bigger than Hemlock Point. That's just one hub. There's a network that spans dozens of systems, run by someone called the Collector. I never found out their real identity, but you got close. Close enough that they wanted me erased rather than killed. Death would have raised questions, but a slave, a broken thing with no memory, that disappears without a trace. Marcus's fists clenched. We'll make them pay for that. You think I'm letting you do this alone? I'm already implicated. Might as well be useful. Venya shook her head, but he saw something in her face, relief, maybe, at not being alone. You're insane, probably, but I'm also the guy with. The supply depot at Tessera Minor was exactly the kind of place where people minded their own business, which made it perfect for people who needed to disappear. Marcus guided the wandering star into a docking bay on the station's outer ring, where the metal was older and the security cameras had convenient blind spots. Stay close, he told Venya as they descended the boarding ramp. And if anyone asks, you're my co-pilot. She'd changed over the past week. The gray slave shift was gone, replaced by practical clothes from Marcus's spare locker dark pants, a worn jacket, boots that were too big but functional. She'd tied her luminescent hair back, and she moved differently now, with purpose and awareness. But it was her eyes that had transformed most. The fear was still there, buried deep, but on the surface was steel. "I know how to blend in," she said quietly. "I've done this before, right? Sorry." Marcus kept forgetting she was trained for this. He was just a freight hauler playing at being a hero. They made their way through the depot's crowded corridors. Tessera Minor catered to the fringe element smugglers, independents, people with questionable pasts and uncertain futures. No one looked at them twice. Marcus bought supplies while Venya hung back, watching the crowd with an operative's attention to detail that it was in the data market, tucked behind a noodle stand, that things went wrong. Marcus was negotiating for navigation updates when he felt Venya's hand suddenly grip his arm. He turned to see her face had gone pale, her skin patterns flickering erratically. "We need to leave," she whispered urgently. "Now, what's wrong?" "Bounty notice." On the public boards, she pulled him away from the vendor, moving quickly toward the exit. "They're looking for both of us." Marcus felt his blood go cold. "Show me." They ducked into a service alcove, and Venya pulled up the notice on her stolen data pad. Two faces stared back at him, his own and hers. The text beneath made his stomach drop. "Wanted, Marcus Webb, human, for theft of registered property and tampering with legal transponder codes. Reward, 20,000 credits. Wanted, Asset Asara, Zalith female, stolen merchandise. Return alive and intact. Reward, 50,000 credits. 50,000, Marcus breathed. "That's more than I paid for you. They want me back badly." Venya's voice was tight. The collector must have realized the conditioning didn't hold. "They know I remember." "How would they know that?" "Because I'm still alive. If I was still broken, still Asara, you would have." She stopped, looking away. "You would have used me by now. The fact that you're running with me instead means something went wrong with their programming." Marcus wanted to argue, to say that wasn't what he would have done, but the implication hung heavy between them. She was right. To anyone watching, his behavior didn't make sense unless the conditioning had failed. "There's more," Venya said, scrolling down. "Look, a second notice, this one without photos. Alert, rogue operative Venya 7. Possibly in Tessera sector. Considered armed and dangerous. Do not engage. Report sightings to Threadkeeper oversight immediately. Your own people think you've gone rogue." Marcus said, "Because I have." Venya's jaw tightened. "I missed my extraction window. Failed to report in. And now I'm traveling with a civilian, which breaks about 15 different protocols." She looked at him. "They'll send someone to bring me in. To debrief me. That sounds ominous, it is. They'll think I've been compromised, turned. They won't believe the conditioning was forced. They'll assume I sold out." Marcus processed this. "So we've got slavers hunting us and your own organization hunting us. Anyone else want to kill us while we're at it?" Despite everything, Venya almost smiled. "I'm sure we can find someone." A sound echoed from the main corridor, heavy boots, moving with purpose. Marcus's instinct screamed danger. "We need to go." They moved quickly through the service passages, Venya's empathic senses guiding them away from hostile intent. Marcus could feel her concentration, the way she was reading the emotional landscape around them like a map, 3 ahead. She whispered, angry, anticipatory, "They're hunters, bounty hunters. Worse, I recognize the emotional signature, Threadkeepers." They changed direction, but the station's layout worked against them. Every corridor seemed to lead back toward the main thoroughfares where they'd be exposed. Marcus's mind raced, calculating options. The ship. Venya asked, "Too far? They'll have it watched by now." He spotted a cargo lift descending to the lower levels. Down, the maintenance levels. They slipped into the lift just as voices echoed behind them. Marcus stabbed the lowest button, and the lift began its grinding descent into the station's guts. "This is my fault," Venya said quietly. "I should have stayed in the cabin. Should have kept my head down. Stop. We're in this together, remember?" The lift shuddered to a halt. The doors opened onto a dimly lit corridor thick with pipes and recycling units. The air was hot and smelled of oil and ozone. They stepped out, and Marcus tried to orient himself. I think the docking bays are this way, he said, pointing left. No, Venya touched her temple, concentrating. There's someone waiting. I can feel them. Someone who's been expecting us. That's impossible. We just got here, I know. But I'm right. She looked at him. Trust me. Marcus didn't hesitate. Always. They moved right instead, deeper into the maintenance level. The corridor opened into a larger space, some kind of junction chamber where power conduits met and split. And standing in the center, waiting with the patience of a predator, was a figure Marcus didn't recognize. She was humanoid, with deep bronze skin and geometric patterns tattooed across her visible arms and neck. Her eyes were augmented, glowing faintly amber. She wore practical armor and carried herself like violence was a language she spoke fluently. Venya 7, the woman said. Her voice was accented, musical despite its edge. You've led us on quite a chase, Ryan. Venya's voice was carefully neutral. Still doing the council's dirty work. Still breaking every rule in the handbook. I see. Ryan's eyes shifted to Marcus. And you must be the freight hauler with a hero complex. Marcus Webb, you've complicated things considerably. I have a talent for it, Marcus said, stepping slightly in front of Venya. Who are you? Ryan Solas. I'm what the Threadkeepers send when someone needs to be brought home. Her gaze returned to Venya. Or eliminated if they can't be saved. I'm not compromised. Venya said, that's what a compromised agent would say. Ryan moved closer, and Marcus saw she had weapons, a neural disruptor on one hip, something that looked like an energy blade on the other. You missed extraction. You've been traveling with an unknown civilian. You've exposed yourself by running. These are not the actions of a stable operative. I was captured, sold. They used conditioning drugs on me, I know. We pulled your distress beacon data before the traffickers scrubbed it. Ryan's expression softened slightly. I know what they did to you, Venya. That's why I'm here. To help, by killing me, by doing whatever is necessary to protect the organization. Ryan's hand drifted toward her disruptor. You know too much. If you've been turned, if the collector has you feeding information, the collector doesn't have me. Venya said fiercely. Marcus saved me. He freed me when he didn't have to, when it cost him everything. I remember now, Ryan. I remember the mission, the infiltration, the betrayal. And I know who sold me out. That got Ryan's attention. Who's someone inside the Threadkeepers. Someone who knew my cover identity and my location. They gave me to the traffickers. Ryan's expression went cold. You're saying we have a traitor. I'm saying someone wanted me gone without killing me. Because killing a Threadkeeper raises questions. But selling one, making them disappear into slavery, that's tidy. Marcus watched the two women face off, feeling the tension crackle between them. He could sense Venya reading Ryan's emotions, searching for truth. If what you're saying is real, Ryan said slowly, then we have a much bigger problem than one rogue operative. It's real, and I can prove it, but I need time. Venya's voice took on an urgent edge. Let us go, Ryan. Give me 48 hours to gather evidence. Then I'll come involuntarily. You know I can't do that. You owe me. Remember Tal Axis 4? I took a disruptor blast for you. That was different. That was before I broke the rules. Venya moved forward, and Marcus saw the operative fully emerge. I've always followed protocol. Always put the mission first. But they broke me, Ryan. They tried to erase who I am. And now you want me to just trust the organization that let me be captured? That might have sold me out? Ryan's hand moved away from her weapon. 48 hours. Then I'm coming for you. And I won't be alone. Fair enough. And Webb? Ryan looked at Marcus. Whatever you think you're doing, playing freedom fighter with a trained operative. Understand this. Venya's world will destroy you. The things she's seen, the things she's done, you can't comprehend it. Don't fall for her just because you want to be a hero. Marcus met her eyes steadily. Too late. Something shifted in Ryan's expression, surprise, maybe, or respect. You're both fools, then. But for what it's worth, I hope you survive. She looked back at Venya. 48 hours. Starting now. She turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the maintenance level like she'd never been there. Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. That was your friend? The closest thing I have to one in the Threadkeepers. Yes. Venya sagged slightly. Exhaustion showing. The journey back to Hemlock Point took 36 hours of hard burn, pushing the Wandering Star's engines past their safety margins. Marcus sat in the pilot's chair, monitoring readouts that made him wince, while Venya worked at the navigation console, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. The data core is in the station's central hub, she said, pulling up schematics she'd memorized before her capture. It's behind 3 security checkpoints and a biometric scanner that I probably can't fool anymore. They'll have updated the systems after my disappearance, so we need a distraction. A big one. Venya zoomed in on the station's power grid. If we could cause a controlled overload in one of the outer sections, it would pull security resources away from the core. Give us maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes to break in, find your evidence, and get out. I did say it would be challenging. Marcus leaned back, studying her profile in the glow of the displays. Over the past day and a half, they'd fallen into an easy rhythm, planning, eating, sleeping in shifts. But there was a tension underneath it all, an awareness of how little time they had and how much could go wrong. Tell me about before, he said suddenly. Before you were Venya 7, before the Threadkeepers. She looked at him, surprised. Why? Because if this goes sideways, I want to know who I'm fighting for. The real you, not just the operative. Venya was quiet for a long moment. Then she set down her data pad and turned to face him. I was born on Zale Prime, in the coastal cities where the water glows at night with bioluminescent plankton. My family were traders, nothing glamorous, just moving goods between islands. I had 2 siblings, a normal life. What changed? Pirates attacked our vessel when I was 15. They killed my parents, took my brother and sister to sell. I was too old for most buyers, so they were going to space me. Her voice remained steady, but Marcus felt the old pain beneath it. The Threadkeepers intercepted the pirate ship. They saved me, but my siblings were already gone. Sold weeks earlier. I'm sorry. The Threadkeepers offered me a choice: go to a relocation center with other refugees, or train with them. Learn to find people like my siblings. Learn to stop people like the pirates. She met his eyes. I chose training. I was good at it. The empathic abilities helped. I could read targets, predict behavior. I became Venya 7, and I found 43 trafficked individuals over 6 years. But I never found my brother or sister. Marcus reached out, taking her hand. The empathic connection flooded through him, and he felt the grief she'd carried for so long. The guilt that she'd saved others but not her own family. That's why you went after the Collector, he said. This wasn't just another mission, no. Intelligence suggested the Collector's network might connect to the pirates who took my siblings. It was a long shot, but she stopped, emotions warring across her face. I broke protocol. I went deeper than I should have, took risks I shouldn't have taken, and I got caught because I was too focused on revenge to see the trap. That doesn't make it your fault, doesn't it? If I'd followed procedure, if I'd waited for backup, maybe I wouldn't have been captured. Maybe I wouldn't have dragged you into this. She pulled her hand away, standing abruptly. You should understand something, Marcus. I'm not a good person. I've done things in the name of the mission that would horrify you. I've lied, stolen, killed when necessary. I'm a weapon that someone aimed and fired. I don't believe that. Then you're naive. But her voice cracked slightly. The Threadkeepers trained me to be whatever the mission needed. No real friends, no attachments, no life outside the work. And I accepted it because it gave me purpose. But now, she turned to look at him, and he saw vulnerability in her eyes. Now I've had a glimpse of something else. These past days with you, just existing without a mission, without pretending to be someone I'm not. It's the first time in years I've felt like a person. Instead of a tool. Marcus stood, crossing to her. Then don't go back. Forget the Threadkeepers. We get your evidence, expose the Collector, and then we disappear. Go somewhere they'll never find us. It's not that simple. Why not? You said it yourself, the organization might be compromised. They think you've gone rogue anyway. So actually go rogue. With me. Venya looked at him like he was offering her something precious and impossible. And do what? Run forever? Live in hiding? Or live free? Actually free, making our own choices. He cupped her face gently, feeling the cool silk of her skin. I know I'm nobody. Just a failed freight hauler with a ship that's falling apart. But I meant what I said on Tessera Minor. I'm not leaving you. And if that means burning my old life completely and starting over somewhere new, then that's what we'll do. You give up everything. Your ship, your business, your home. Venya, I gave that up the moment I bid on you. I crossed a line I can't uncross. But I don't want to. He leaned his forehead against hers. I've spent 10 years hauling cargo across space alone, telling myself I was free because I had no ties. But that's not freedom, that's just isolation. Being with you, even with bounty hunters and spies chasing us, even facing impossible odds, this is the first time I've felt alive in years. Through their connection, he felt her barriers crumbling, felt the depth of emotion she'd been holding back. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that a different life was possible. I'm terrified, she whispered, of the mission, of this, of you, of wanting something for myself instead of for the greater good. She pulled back slightly, searching his eyes. What if I'm not worth saving? What if everything I've done, everyone I've hurt, what if that's the real me? Then we're both broken, Marcus said. And maybe that's okay. Maybe broken people are the only ones who understand what freedom actually costs. She kissed him then, fierce and desperate, and Marcus felt every wall she'd built come crashing down. The empathic connection intensified until he couldn't separate his emotions from hers: desire, fear, hope, and a love that terrified them both because it made them vulnerable in ways their enemies could exploit. When they broke apart, both trembling, Venya rested her head against his chest. After we get the evidence, she said quietly. After we expose the collector and clear my name. If we survive, when we survive, when we survive, she amended. I want to try a real life with you. Marcus held her close, feeling the weight of that promise. Then let's make sure we survive. The proximity alarm chimed, indicating they were approaching Hemlock Point. Marcus reluctantly released Venya and returned to the controls, bringing the wandering star out of jump space. The border station materialized against the stars, looking exactly as it had 2 weeks ago, a sprawling collection of habitats and docking bays, where the law was more suggestion than reality. Security's going to recognize my ship, Marcus said. Then we don't use the ship. Venya pulled up a display showing smaller craft docked round the station's periphery. There, that maintenance skiff. We spacewalk over, steal it, and use it to approach from the service entrance. Less monitoring on those bays. You want to steal a ship while we're stealing data? Efficiency. But she smiled slightly, and Marcus saw a glimpse of who she might become without the weight of the Threadkeepers. Someone who could find humor even in danger. They suited up, checking seals and oxygen levels. Marcus grabbed the small toolkit he kept for repairs, and Venya armed herself with a neural disruptor she'd been hiding in her jacket. They stood by the airlock, ready to step into vacuum. Marcus, Venya said, if something happens to me in there, nothing's going to happen. But if it does, I need you to promise you'll leave. Don't try to save me. Just get out and disappear. Not a chance, Marcus, no promises. We're partners, remember? That means we both make it out or neither of us does. He locked his helmet into place. Besides, you're not getting rid of me that easily. Through the helmet's transparent faceplate, he saw her expression soften. You're impossible. You like impossible. She didn't deny it. They cycled the airlock and stepped into the black. Space stretched around them, infinite and indifferent. Marcus engaged his suit's thrusters, and they drifted toward the maintenance skiff Venya had targeted. The station loomed larger, its docking lights creating a constellation of human activity in the void. The skiff was unoccupied and poorly secured, exactly what they needed. Venya bypassed the lock in 30 seconds, and they slipped inside, pressurizing the tiny cabin. Marcus took the controls while Venya plotted their approach vector. Service Bay 7, she said. Automated systems only. We can slice the access codes. They made their way around the station's bulk, staying in the shadow of larger vessels. Marcus's heart hammered as they approached the service entrance, expecting alarms to blare at any moment. But Venya's codes worked, and the bay doors cycled open, swallowing their stolen skiff. Inside, they abandoned the craft and moved quickly through maintenance corridors. Venya led with confidence, her memories of the station layout guiding them. They saw no one. Most of the station's population was in the main sectors, conducting business both legal and otherwise. The central hub rose before them, a tower of metal and reinforced glass. Venya paused at a junction, touching her temple. "Something's wrong," she said. "What?" "I don't sense anyone. The hub should have guards, technicians, but it's empty." Marcus felt cold fingers of dread. "A trap, maybe, or..." She looked at him. "They might know we're..."